Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to Tool Show with me, Master Dan, the Journeyman shooter. And today I'm here at Signal Hill here in Calgary, and it's the southwest part of the city. It's a gorgeous area, and as you can see, there's a giant geolith behind me there that kind of marks the battalions of the hill. And this used to be like a signaling point for when the planes were flying back in from World War I, World War II kind of thing. And so that's what this is. It's a beautiful area. It's gorgeous out today, and I figured I'd come out here and give a little talk, and maybe we'd have a kind of a conversation about something that's important. And you can see the Rockies behind me there. It's kind of a gorgeous day. It's nice and kind of interesting, but we're gonna have one of our little coffee time segments here, and hopefully you can see me. It looks like the light's a little bit interesting, but that was not bad. It's tasty. So what I wanted to talk about today was signaling. Now, signals are very important, especially when you're in the trades or anywhere really. Like if you're driving down the road, it's important that you signal your intentions, because that's pretty key. You can't just kind of expect people to know where you're going, and if they don't know where you're going, they could turn right in your way. And it's defensive driving 101, because I know a lot of people, they take the offensive driving courses, but they don't get into a defensive one, and that's pretty important that you take the defensive course. But it also just says you gotta signal. You gotta actually tell people where you're going and be safe. And there's signals that have been around through history basically, and just like this hill, it was a signal for the war, but before it was actually part of the Tsuut'ina Nation here, and it was a native land. And what the natives used to do was they'd send smoke signals, and because it was easier than walking 10 miles just to pass a note or a letter, so they would start up a fire and light up some kind of signal and pass it along that way. And that was genius too. So that's amazing. It's kind of old school technology, but then it grew on to pigeon signaling and all the other kind of stuff. But it's beautiful, so that's about it. And yeah, it's a beautiful day out here today, so I figured we'd just have our signal talk. And what else? Oh, I was talking about signals, and signals are very important, especially in the trades, because like I know on the electrical course for the journeyman electrician, they had crane signals, which most people wouldn't imagine crane signals would be something that you'd have on an electrical course, but that's what it was. So we had to do crane signals, and some of those crane signals, just one sec, let me have one more sip of coffee. Jeez, you get lightheaded or light breathed up here because it's so high up, but that's part of Calgary. You got to kind of understand that it's the Rocky Mountains, and the higher you get up, the less air there is. So that's another science lesson for today. But our main lesson is signals. So when you're in like the construction trades, you're going to be around cranes a lot of the time. So knowing basic crane signals are pretty important. So if the crane has a load on there to go up, you just circle your finger and point up. And if the crane doesn't have a load, or if the crane's load's got to go down, you just kind of circle your finger and it goes down. And then you can signal both ways and that kind of stuff. Nothing too out there. And that's kind of the basics of what you need to know is signaling. That's to raise the load, that's to lower the load. And then you can raise the boom and lower the boom or whatever. And that's pretty important too, because you got to have those kind of things, and you got to know the proper way to tell somebody what to do. And if you need to stop, there's an emergency stop where you just put your hand out to the side and give it a straight hand, and or that's the regular stop, and then you just wave your hand back and forth if you want it to emergency stop, or you just yell real loud. There's many different ways to signal that kind of stuff, and that's pretty important. So that's part of the trades. You just got to know what you're doing and how to signal the proper guy. And normally we just yell back and forth because you should be within distance. But if you have a walkie-talkie or your walkie-talkie's not working and you got to do the hand signals, it's just smart to know them. It's just like knots. A lot of the time people don't know how to do proper knots in the trades, and it gets you in a lot of trouble because things fall and it just doesn't look proper, especially if the wrong person walks by and catches you doing the wrong thing. It's part of the trades. And same with there's many different kinds of signals, especially if your car, like I know bikes and motorcycles, it's important because a lot of people just don't signal when they're riding a bike, and it's just like wearing a helmet. You should wear a helmet, especially if you're in traffic, but a lot of people don't. So it's just dangerous because, yeah, your brain's one of the best tools you have. So, but if you're on a bike, there's also a few different little signals you can do. And on your bike, normally the rear brake is going to be on your right side for your right hand. So when you stop, you want to hit that rear brake. You don't want to hit the front brake first because you'll fly over the handles. And I know my dad had a really fast motorcycle. He kind of hit his midlife crisis and he bought one of the Suzuki Hayabusas, and it was in the Guinness Book of Records records, and it had the 2-page spread, and he used to love this bike, and he kept the Guinness Book of Records out all the time, and he took it down to Daytona Beach and got the neon kit put underneath of it, and just an amazing bike. But he always talked about, like, when you're stopping, you have to use your right hand, because if you use that left, you're just going to fly over the handlebars. It's got too much power, and the brakes are too tight on it, and it's dangerous. So that's why you have to know how to stop, but you also have to know the directions. There's different signals, because when you're using your right hand to stop, you only have your left hand free. So your left hand's going to be free, which is your right on the screen there. But when you're using that left hand, that's how you can signal. And especially if you don't have signals on your bike, like a normal street bike, then you want to be able to signal properly. So normally you just do the hand to the side and signal for a left, because that's already your left-handed side, right? And your right hand's holding that brake. Or if you have to go right and you can't take your hand off that brake and you want to do it properly, you put your hand straight up at a 90 degree, just like that bad boy right there, and give it the old hello, and then that'll let people behind you know that you want to turn right. So it's straight left if you want to go to the left, and up if you want to go to the right. And that's it for biking, basically. And then, I don't know, if you want to stop, you just yell, I'm stopping. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to yell that. I'm sure people will understand, but that's kind of basically it. There's not much else to it. And so from smoke signals to pigeons and birds and all the other different kind of signals to actual signals on your car and on your bike and all the other kind of things that you do, you got to be able to signal. And then construction is just as important. So you have to know when to say yes and you're good. And it's just, there's a whole bunch of different proper signals, and that's why it's good if you learn. I can't tell you all of them in one single sitting here. And even if I tried, I'd probably be wrong on one of them, because some of them are so intricate. There's a billion different handshakes, a billion different signals with your hands that you can do. There's everything you can do, so you got to learn them yourself. And who am I to tell you what to do? So you don't have to learn them if you don't want to, but you're not going to better yourself unless you know those things. And especially in construction, the more you know, the better, the more you value you are to a company. Because if you can signal a crane, if you can do all these different things and you know these things, then you're a valuable person. And that, especially, even it's on the exams, even if you're not in a crane program, you're gonna have to deal with some kind of hand signal someday in your life. So it's pretty simple. So if you get that on the load, and you can tell them to go up, or you're going to tell them to go down, or you can just signal which direction you need to go to. And then if you need to stop, hand straight out while your arm's straight out. So put your arm out like that. And if you really need to stop, then you just kind of do your old stop and really make sure they see that arm's flailing like a madman. But that's about it. So now you learned a few simple crane techniques, I guess, and that's going to get you a little bit further in the trade. So for this tool show, I'm Master Dan, the Journeyman shooter. Get out there and use your signals.